Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Brendan and welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new here, it's great to have you. And today we start a new series called Cryptocurrency Explained, where I go through and explain the top 20 or so cryptocurrencies. And today we start off with the king of them all, the number one cryptocurrency, Mr. Bitcoin. So today I'm going to be doing Bitcoin Explained, where I talk about everything from the start to the end of where we're at right now, how much of Bitcoin there is, what it is, where you can use it, and what it actually is as a cryptocurrency, and I guess what all cryptocurrencies really are. So if that sounds like something interesting to you guys, go ahead and stick around for the video, but I'm going to go ahead and dive on into this one. So let's start with what I guess Bitcoin is and why it's being used. Now, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, or it is a digital form of currency that is not fiat. Now, I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but when I say it's not a fiat currency, it is not run by a country or a government, and there is a limited supply that can ever be in existence. It is an alternative to fiat or government-ran currencies, which makes it a lot like a hedge to most people. So when you hear like a lot of big investors talk about Bitcoin, they call it a hedge to fiat currency or a counter to fiat currency, because what we have right now is fiat currencies that are devaluing, especially I guess, or more specifically, the US dollar is devaluing by about 3% a year every year. Now, that might even go up this year because of everything that has been happening, but people are using this as an alternative investment to help diversify their portfolio and counter the devaluation of their fiat, and in this case, specifically the US dollar. Now, the US dollar was not always at the place where it was devaluing so fast. It was taken off the gold standard in 1971 by President Nixon, and that was a big part of what started devaluing the dollar even faster, and I guess what led to the creation of cryptocurrency. And even though it wouldn't be created until 2009 and 2010, this was a key factor, and we see that in the works and in the white paper of Bitcoin itself. So with Bitcoin having no middleman that needs to be, I guess, happening in it, it is a P2P, or a person-to-person, a peer-to-peer transaction system, which means that when you want to pay for something and you want to transfer or pay or whatever that may be with your currency, in this case being Bitcoin, you do it directly to the person. There is no bank involved, there is no mediator involved, which means that there is no additional fees when having to pay for something or anything like that. You are paying directly to the person or the store or whatever that may be. And that's, I guess, how the P2P system works. This is really good because with the world that we live in today, whether the government's the mediator or even a bank, people have started becoming less interested and I guess less trusting of how the system works, which is where Bitcoin tends to grab its attraction and gain its traction. So because it is a because it's a P2P system, there is no tampering with it. It's on something called a blockchain, which again, I'll explain a little bit more, but that's something for an entirely separate video. But Bitcoin is untamperable. It cannot be hacked. It cannot be tampered with. It is on a public ledger that anyone can access and view, and it is a permanent system of storage and data. So when I say that Bitcoin can't be hacked, I know you guys are asking yourselves and wondering right now, you know that you've heard videos and heard news articles of Bitcoin being hacked before. And let me, very quickly explain that. So when people say that Bitcoin has been hacked, that is from people who choose to let their Bitcoin go to a middleman, which again, it was not supposed to do, because the entire point of a Bitcoin was to remove the middleman. Hence why it is a decentralized blockchain. So when people's Bitcoin gets hacked, what that means is they go to an exchange or a company that wants to hold it. Maybe that's Coinbase, maybe that's eToro, whatever kind of, person or company you want to use to hold your Bitcoin. So what they do is they give their Bitcoin to them, and therefore the company has a system of passwords. They have a storage system of saying, all right, we have this guy's cryptocurrency in this wallet. The password and username for this wallet is this is this, and these are all the codes, and they store that on their data system, which is a centralized data system, because they are a company that is not, or more often than not, on a centralized computer system or storage system. So when they put their codes and their username and their passwords into the database, people can hack their databases, grab all the information that they need, and then therefore go in and take whatever they want in and out and move it around. Now, if you store your Bitcoin, store your Bitcoin on a private cold wallet and you write that down or memorize it and you put that cold wallet in a safe or something like that, it's not going to be able to be hacked. It's impossible. The whole reason why it's able to be hacked in the first place is because people store their passwords and everything on a computer or a data system, which therefore that can be hacked. But the actual Bitcoin and blockchain itself cannot be hacked. In fact, in the last 10 years of Bitcoin operating and being in existence, it has never gone offline a single time. It has never been entirely hacked. It has never failed. It has run for 10 consecutive years for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single year, and has never once had a problem and or gone offline, which is something that no other piece of technology to this date has actually been able to do, which makes it extremely significant and why the blockchain and the technology behind cryptocurrencies have been have been exploding so much to this date. So let's talk about who created Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin was created, and excuse me guys, we are going to be scrolling through this. This is about kind of just some basic information in the background that I am going to just leave up here for you guys to read through as I explain this in probably a whole lot simpler of a manner, because this tends to get a little bit complicated. So I'm just trying to simplify this as we are going through. So I'm just going to leave this up in the background. But Bitcoin was created by a guy or a group of people named Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, Satoshi Nakamoto was the creator and is the creator of Bitcoin, but no one knows who he is, and we don't even know if it was one person, 10 people, 100 people. They could have been Asian, they could have been American, they could have been African for all that we know, but we do not know who he is or who they are, which is one of the greatest mysteries of Bitcoin. But that makes so much sense because if we knew who he was and we knew who he was and where he was from, that would centralize the idea of Bitcoin. Could you imagine if we knew that it came out of Japan and it was a group of 100 people that worked for the Japanese government? All of a sudden, Bitcoin would become increasingly more centralized. Everything that those people would say and do and tweet and everything, their investments, it would all affect the price action of Bitcoin and how it correlated to markets. So what we're able to do is that, since we don't know who created it and who is a part of it and where that it's from, it is incredibly decentralized, on top of everything else that it has going for it. So when I talk about Bitcoin being on a decentralized blockchain, I mentioned that, again, it hasn't been hacked or gone offline or anything in 10 years, which is one of the most influential things that stands out to me, because nothing else that we have today has been able to do something like that. It's just able to self-run for forever. Now, there's a limited supply that can ever be in existence, which is something that I mentioned earlier when talking about the gold and silver standard. And there are only 21 million Bitcoin that can ever be in existence. And this is incredibly important because we cannot print more. And while there is a process to earn Bitcoin, it can never exceed that preset value of 21 million coins ever being in existence. And we're about 85% of the way of mining that 21 million coins. We have almost, I think it was like 18 million right now in existence, which means that there are currently less than 3 million left. And we know that we have lost about 4 million of those already. So the realistic supply of Bitcoin right now is around 17 million, or some even think that it's less than that. Now, when I say that it's been lost, this is people using their cold wallets and then forgetting their passwords or losing it or breaking their wallets or something along that manner. It's lost in the blockchain somewhere. They were irresponsible with keeping their Bitcoin, and therefore it is lost and or gone or even destroyed. So with 21 million Bitcoin ever being in existence and the US dollar and other fiats devaluing around 3% a year, people like the idea of having an alternative that doesn't devalue and something that actually gains value, increasingly every single year. Now, they are made through a process called proof of work, and this is done through another process called mining. I guess they're one and the same. So when you're doing proof of work mining, you are setting your computer system up to solve complex algorithms. And what it's doing is it's I guess, operating and solving and working on the blockchain. And after it's successfully solved or contributed to solving one of these algorithms, those algorithms unlock a Bitcoin or a group of Bitcoins. So for contributing to your work to the blockchain and for contributing to your work mining, you are rewarded back with a little bit of a Bitcoin. Now, if you actually mine the next block, you're rewarded with like 12 Bitcoin. I believe that was just cut in half to about like 6. So that is something called the halving, which happens every couple of years. Essentially, every couple of years, the mining reward for Bitcoin is cut in half, and this incentivizes I guess, supply and demand and how it works. And I can only imagine that once all the Bitcoin is mined and there is no more coming into existence, you're going to have the demand go up pretty drastically, but you're also going to have less, I guess, activity happening on the blockchain itself. But again, that's speculation, as that is a part of the future. So Bitcoin, ever since its inception back in 2010, is up 8.9 million %. Let's go ahead and go to the next page here. So with Bitcoin being up 8.9 million % since 2010, that is, needless to say, it's incredible. There are very few investments that we could have looked at in the past 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years that would give you 8.9 million %. And this happened in a less than, I guess, exactly in a 10-year time span. So there are people who can't even see those kind of returns over a 100-year time span, let alone a 10-year time span where it absolutely just blew into existence. And a lot of this has to do with the idea of it, and it's something that has never happened before. The technology also behind this is a huge driving factor. So let's talk about the transactions that are, I guess, happening on the blockchain. They're permanent. They're recorded on a permanent public ledger. Anyone can view them. Anyone can see them. It's not tamperable. Again, you can't change this information. And one of the cool things about Bitcoin is that it can be transacted anywhere in the world. If you are in, I guess, Japan or China or in Africa or South America, I'm currently in North America, I can send you Bitcoin. It can be there anywhere between 10 minutes and an hour, and it costs about 45 cents to 90 cents typically to get that over to you. So that's extremely cheap when comparing it to something like doing a wire transfer or a large bank transfer from one country to another country, which is going to take you anywhere between at least 2 to 5 business days and a whole lot more money. If you're transferring millions or tens of millions of dollars, it's going to cost you a fortune, which is where something called, XRP comes in, which I'll talk about again in another video. I guess that's what they specialize in. So Bitcoin currently right now, let's go ahead and talk about this next slide. This is the Bitcoin transaction fees. I guess I'll just kind of run through this. I know I've already talked about this, but you guys can kind of get a visual for how this works and what this looks like for, I guess, the next block fee, 3 blocks or 6 blocks, etc. So this is kind of, I guess, the data and what I was talking about put into a chart and physically written. So let's talk about the beautiful idea of how many people accept and work with Bitcoin. Now, there are a lot of companies and organizations that have started accepting Bitcoin. You can buy real estate with Bitcoin. You can go to sports events with Bitcoin. You can pay for your airlines and cruises in Bitcoin now. And one of the great things is that we're starting to see retail get into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as well. So there are over 100,000 merchants that accept Bitcoin around the world, which is a very good number. Again, it's far from where it was a couple of years ago. And just how fast this is growing has been something that has been extremely intriguing to me. But over 100,000 businesses around the world. And let's talk about some of the big ones. So of course we have Wikipedia, Microsoft, Expedia, AT&T, Burger King, KFC, Overstock, Playboy, Subway, Twitch, which is a streaming platform. Then you have sporting events like the Miami Dolphins, and we have the Dallas Mavericks, and again, the list just continues to go on. You have Cheap Air, Gift, Newegg, 4chan, ExpressVPN. There's just a ton of them. So when we're seeing this increasingly grow, and we're seeing these Fortune 500 names around the world starting to accept Bitcoin and other forms of cryptocurrency, it is just contributing to the growth that it already has. And again, if you're viewing it as a hedge and you're just strictly buying it and holding it for the fact that you want to hedge fiat, this is all just icing on the cake. Here's a video of a guy buying Subway with Bitcoin. I mean, that's just incredibly cool to me. Of course, you have people like eToro now that work with Bitcoin, and you have Robinhood that's now started working with Bitcoin. You just have a lot of more brokerages that have started making it more accessible. So Bitcoin is the precedent for cryptocurrencies. It is and let's go ahead and go to the next slide here. This is the one talking about Bitcoin being up 8.9 million% over the last decade. So Bitcoin is the precedent for other cryptocurrencies. There are thousands of cryptocurrencies in the world today. The second one, or the second main one, was Ethereum, which was created in 2015, which we'll talk about in next episode of Cryptocurrency Explained. But Bitcoin was the precedent. It was the precedent for a blockchain. It was the precedent for decentralized currency, for peer-to-peer transactions. That has never been done, like anything like it has in this manner. And there are just a load of them out there. So maybe we'll continue the series past 20, but I want to explain that there are a lot of cryptocurrencies. Not all of them are on a blockchain. Not all of them have a certain amount of supply, and they all have different functions. Almost all of them have a different function. I mean, you have some that are doing smart contracts. You have some that are doing data and cloud storage. You have some that are meant for, banking transactions. They can be programmed to do a load of things, which is, I guess, what makes this series in cryptocurrencies so cool. Basically, to sum this up, guys, Bitcoin is a hedge versus the fiat systems, which I know I've said a lot. It's also just a means of wealth storage, and it's also used as an investment, hence why people have seen this as a 8.9 million% over the last decade. Now, this is if you bought way, way back at the very beginning of Bitcoin, in the first year, being at, what was it? It was worth incredibly less. It was under $1. So with Bitcoin being at where it's at today, people speculate that it can go up to, back to 20,000 to 50,000 to 100,000. The ultimate answer is that while we never know, it has been proven over the last 10 years, and we can only expect that if it does even a quarter of what it did in the last 10 years, in the next 10 years to come, then we would still see pretty great rewards. Even if we see a tenth of what we saw in the last 10 years, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would be happy with 1,000,000%. So I don't think that that's something that is quite as probable to happen, but I think that we definitely could see Bitcoin pass its all-time high of $20,000 and even move towards, 20, 30, possibly 40, $50,000. Who knows? In 10 years, it could be $100,000. So that is Bitcoin explained for the most part. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys did enjoy this or have any questions about this topic, please shoot me a message. I have a link to my Discord groups, completely free, no strings attached, just kind of where my community resides. I have a link to that in the comment section in the description down below. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask those in the comment section down below. Once again, guys, if you did enjoy the video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one.